Good morning, you magnificent morning melonheads, you. Happy Tuesday, everybody. It's time for my weekly morning live stream. As always, I must warn you, I am not a morning person, but I got my hot cup of wake up juice here, and we are going to get through this. Hi, Mom. Hi, Dad. I love you guys. Hope everyone is doing well today. So, not a whole heck of a lot going on in the stock market right now. Yeah, things are up a little bit. No big news going on there. Meanwhile, in cryptocurrency, things just continue to spiral over there. Now, look, folks, I this isn't a crypto channel. We also do crypto here. Um, I know we've been covering a lot of crypto lately. It's the biggest story in finance, and I you can't ignore it because it's going to affect everything else. I've mentioned in my live stream on Friday what we're seeing right now is the failure of the highest level in Exter's pyramid, the riskiest, most garbage assets imaginable with the highest amount of counterparty risk. They're failing first. That's where it starts. It's going to continue to cascade down. So, we're going to stay on top of this story and we're going to keep an eye on it. And right now, there's a lot of names are being thrown around as possible next dominoes to fall. I'm hearing Genesis. I'm hearing the Greyscale Bitcoin Trust may be about to go under, which they're both owned by the same company. So maybe they go down together. Coinbase is starting to have trouble. There's a lot going on right now. So we're going to look at a couple of these stories. And there's also one bank at the middle of all of it that you got to keep your eye on. It's not a household name, but I think it might be maybe by Thanksgiving. Who knows? Which is only just a couple of days away. In the meantime, I think we are going to bring in my man, the mod Mish, and say hello. Good morning, Mish. How we doing today?
I'm doing great. You wouldn't believe the number of posts I've seen on Twitter that says "Be careful on Thanksgiving dinner," because crypto was 75% higher last Thanksgiving, and you talked all your relatives into buying it.
Yeah, that uncle who told you to buy Doge or told you to buy sheep. Yeah, might want to parse your words carefully. But hey, look, I've always been a Bitcoin guy. I've always said I'm bullish Bitcoin, even though I thought Bitcoin was going to crash. I've been saying it since last summer. I've also said I don't trust DeFi apps, that these 15% yields are garbage, that the only way they're paying you 15% is if they're making higher than 15%. And the only way they're doing that is by taking risk with your money. So, thank God, man. I tell you, a lot of these other finance channels out there, they have BlockFi links in their bios and everything, and they're go to my website and sign up for BlockFi, sign up for FTX. You got to be careful who you take money from in this business, man. It will come back to haunt you, and important things to remember because we'll be here again. All right, we've been here 3 times before in cryptocurrency. It was Mt. Gox the first time. It was like 90% of the crypto market. Boom, they failed. Everybody lost everything. And there was OneCoin and BitConnect in the last cycle. They failed. Everything crashed. Now this time looks like it's going to be bigger. But there is, we've been here before. We'll be here again. Remember these lessons the next time everybody's saying, oh, this new coin, it's 1,000x. You're going to be rich. Have fun staying poor. All that stupid stuff. Bad optics. Bad optics, folks. Anyways, I want to say thank you very much to Mr. Zarkos. Appreciate the super chat, sir, and the support of the channel. He says, sending autumnal greetings to everybody in your family and wishing you a holiday season full of peace, gratitude, and plenty. Thank you very much, Zarkos, for your autumnal meetings. There's a word I don't always use conversationally. That was a very autumnal post. And thank you for the good cheer, sir. And right back at you and yours. Appreciate that very much. Thank you for the support of the channel. All righty. Let's take a quick breeze through markets while we're at it here and see what is going on before we get to some of these crypto stories. Right now, the S&P is up just a tick, about 20 points or a half of 1% pre-market. The Dow is up 180 points, also a half of 1%. And the NASDAQ is up just a little bit less, up 42 points or 0.37%. So an okay morning for stocks right now. Not a whole heck of a lot going on. If you want to know why, well, my guess, it probably has something to do with the Dixie. The U.S. dollar is lower right now. Lower dollar usually means higher asset prices. DXY currently sitting at 107.53. I mentioned on my live stream Friday that 105 level is the one to watch. That's where I see some strong support. And if we break below that, look out. Well, we've come up a little bit since then, so hopefully we stay there. Looking at the commodity space right now, it looks like Ad blocker. Investing doesn't let me use ad blocker. Gold is up about $3 or 0.21%. Silver is up just under a quarter or 1%. And it looks like copper up 7 cents. Platinum group metals are up just a little bit each. Crude oil trading at 81.28. We mentioned crude in a video yesterday. You know, speaking of crude and in crypto, all the people who are out there screaming that this is why crypto needs to be regulated. We need the CFTC and Rostin Benham come take over crypto, or Gary Gensler save us from all the crime. Look at what happened in oil markets yesterday. Look at that. Drop down on a fake news story, and then somebody made a lot of money at somebody else's expense, and then the real news came up, and oil went right back up. Gee, I can't wait for the SEC and the CFTC to take over cryptocurrency so they can stop all the crime. Sorry, got a little fired up there. Jack it off your soapbox.
Well, I was going to
I was
say
in
that
disbelief.
commodities are acting like they're supposed to today. With the Dixie being down, you should see a small uptick in commodities as a general. So it's nice for something to actually be making sense for once.
That is nice. Yes. There is no reason in this place anymore. Looking around the rest of commodities right now, looks like base metals are up a little. Just about everything is up right now. Again, a lower dollar. You would expect asset prices to be higher. Not a lot going on in the bond market this morning. You know, we got a little bit of movement, 1 or 2 basis points in either direction, but not a whole heck of a lot going on there. I would point out the inversion between the 10-year and the 1 month. Look at that inversion. Now 8 basis points difference between the 1 month treasury and the 10-year treasury. This isn't good, folks. This is a bigger inversion than I've ever seen. And to see the 1 month flipping the 10-year, good God, there's nothing good happening in the debt markets right now. And, you know, I've mentioned on this channel before, I think the reason why crypto is failing right now, besides the fact that there's just rampant fraud, but the reason why it's failing now has to deal with the debt getting more expensive. And we'll see some of that in the Genesis story here shortly. And thank you very much, Mike Bender from Robin RC Models, for your super chat, sir. He says, CT is crying. It's the end of the world. I am buying. Who are we saying, CT? Ah, Mr. Taylor? Is that who we're talking about? Is that my good buddy Chris over at Financial Prepper? Is it Thunderdome, Chris? Well, end of the world? No. The sun will rise and the sun will set. It's just a matter of how much it's going to suck along the way. For some people, it's going to feel like the end of the world. Something tells me Chris Taylor's going to be just fine. He's set up pretty sweet down there in Louisiana. Him and Stacy got a good setup going. They're a smart couple of folks. I think they're going to be just fine.
Mike clarified crypto Twitter.
Crypto Twitter, not Chris Taylor. Okay. I thought we were talking about my buddy Chris. By the way, I'm coming for you, Chris. Within a few hundred subs of Chris now. He was a few thousand subs ahead of me for a while. Okay, crypto Twitter is crying it's the end of the world. Okay. Well, for a lot of them, it is the end of the world. For Sam Bankman-Fried, his run is over. Which, by the way, SBF, still not in handcuffs. Still no cuffs for Sam Bankman-Fried. He's out there.
He's still out there pimping, dog. He's still out there
they're talking about
raising that money.
Oh, FTX got hacked. FTX didn't get hacked. The guy with the keys to all the money is still running free. He's trying to buy his freedom. That's what he's doing. He's trying to buy a place to live out the rest of his life in exile. So he sent his plane down to Argentina. It was probably full of cold storage wallets or gold or whatever.
Empty plane?
Yeah, his empty plane. Sure. Lots of people send empty private jets to Argentina in the midst of a fraud crisis. Sure. You kidding? This guy is out there covering his butt, moving money around, moving stolen money around, and he's not in handcuffs. Why? Well, he bought politicians. He bought regulators. He paid for this in advance with your money if you were an FTX customer. Still not in handcuffs. And keep in mind, folks, everybody who sent money to FTX, right? You signed up for FTX and you funded an account. If you actually put money into your account, guess what? It never went to FTX. It went to a Silvergate Bank account in the name of Alameda Research, which means he took money from investors under false pretenses. There's a word for that. That's bank fraud. And when you do it across invisible lines, now Mitch and I were talking, there's grounds for a RICO case here, organized crime. This guy committed millions of counts of felonies. He could already be sent to jail for life because of what he did, and he's still walking free. Unbelievable.
I saw last night people congratulating him for giving away all his money.
Oh yeah. Yep. Finally did it. Finally gave away his whole fortune, his stolen fortune. Anyways, Mike, as far as buying, I wouldn't. This is not a dip. I'd be buying, at least not piling in. I do plan on buying at some point, but below here, there's still a lot of stuff that needs to unwind in the crypto space, and we're gonna get into some of that. Well, right now, let's get into some of that right now, shall we? This is the one everybody is talking about here. Crypto brokerage Genesis is said to warn of bankruptcy without funding. Genesis executives spent the weekend seeking to line up financing, and their leading unit suspended withdrawals after the FTX collapse. Just going to read a little bit off of here. Digital asset broker Genesis is struggling to raise fresh cash for its lending unit, and it's warning potential investors that it may need to file for bankruptcy if its efforts fail, according to people with knowledge of the matter. Oh, look, people with knowledge of the matter. There's Jack's pet peeve again. Give me a name, press, so we don't get CFs like we got yesterday in oil markets, citing people knowledgeable with the matter. Put your name in print. Otherwise, it's garbage and it's not worth printing. Genesis has spent the past several days seeking at least $1 billion in fresh capital, said the people. Well, thanks, the people. $1 billion. So, who out there has $1 billion they want to lend to Genesis? Somebody get the Ontario Teachers Pension Fund on the phone. Let's see if they're game. I hear they're looking to double down. They need gains to make up for some recent losses. Look, these companies need debt. They need financing. They need money. And debt is a whole heck of a lot more expensive than it was a year ago. So, again, this is trouble in the debt market. Illiquidity in the debt market is exposing frauds. It's exposing over leverage. And I don't know if Genesis is another fraud like FTX was, or if they were just reckless with their money and they took too much risk and they didn't have enough reserves. Either way, they're on the brink of failure and they need $1 billion in debt that nobody's going to give to them. I mean, who in their right mind would send $1 billion to a crypto company right now for a bailout? No, nobody would. So I'm getting a text message right now from Chris. Chris, if you were watching, sorry, brother. I'm not sure if that was you or not. So anyways, Genesis suspended. We read that one. The rush for funding was precipitated by a liquidity crunch at the lender after the sudden collapse of FTX, one of the world's largest crypto exchanges. Genesis halted redemptions shortly after revealing on November 10th that it had $175 million locked in an FTX trading account. Now, I want to talk about this one. This is Crypto Cred over on Twitter. He put this one out, and I got a real kick out of this. This is the timeline of events. And pay attention here to what they say, folks, in the order that they say it, because everybody is doing this right now. Almost everybody in crypto is reading off of a script just like this. On November 8th, Genesis said, "We have no material net credit exposure." All was well in Genesis on November 8th. A day later, they said, "Oh, okay, we lost $7 million. That was on November 9th. Okay, well, they went from no material credit exposure to we lost $7 million. $7 million, you know what, to a big outfit like Genesis, no big deal, right? Yeah, moving on. November 10th, just another day later. Okay, we have $175 million locked in FTX. Oh, well, that's different. Boy, in 2 days, we went from no credit exposure to $175 million locked up in a Ponzi scheme. Well, a lot happened in 48 hours over at Genesis, didn't it? So were they lying on November 8th, or from November 8th to November 10th, did they decide to invest $175 million in FTX? We'll let the bankruptcy court sort that out. 6 days later, Genesis says, sorry, no more withdrawals, no new loans. So they froze withdrawals. That was your next indicator that they were about to pop. Then on November 17th, they said, we need $1 billion or we're going to go bankrupt. And right now, on November 22nd, November 21st, on this image, they're saying, we'll go bankrupt without the money. So look, folks, over a span of 13 days, 2 weeks, they say we have no material exposure to, we will be bankrupt in a matter of hours if we don't get $1 billion from somebody. And I'm hearing Wednesday is the drop dead date for this $1 billion cash infusion that they need. So Genesis will probably be gone by the time we sit down to eat our turkey on Thursday. So it looks like right now Genesis is the leading candidate for the next domino to fall. But there's another contender in the ring here, and it's Genesis, we'll say their cousin, Greyscale. Greyscale is the owner of the GBTC Trust, which a lot of people erroneously refer to GBTC as the Bitcoin ETF. That is not correct. It is a trust. And right now, that's a big difference because GBTC, for years, it was the only way to get price exposure to Bitcoin without actually getting a wallet and your own private keys and going on an exchange and buying Bitcoin. A lot of people didn't want to mess around with any of that. They didn't want to go through the learning curve to learn how to transact in Bitcoin. So they just went through their brokerage account and they bought shares of GBTC, this Grayscale trust. And right now, as of yesterday, Grayscale has somewhere between 10 and 12 billion dollars worth of Bitcoin in the trust. The problem is the trust is currently trading, the shares are trading at only about half of that value. There's a huge discrepancy between what Grayscale is currently trading at and what they actually hold in the trust. What they hold in the trust is worth twice as much as what it's trading at. Well, what the heck, man? Why is that? Because investors have no confidence in this product right now. And the typical way that an ETF would rectify a discrepancy right now, like this, is not available to them. If they were an ETF and they were trading at this huge discount to net asset value, what they'd be able to do is they would be able to sell some of their assets, some of their Bitcoin, and then with the proceeds, buy back shares. Now, because they are trading at such a discount to net asset value, if they were to sell one Bitcoin, they would be able to buy back 2 Bitcoin worth of shares. So very quickly, the price of the shares and the net asset value would come back in line through this, I don't want to say arbitrage, but it's a way they could rectify the price. Well, they're not allowed to do that because they're not an ETF. They're a trust. And the SEC has blocked them from becoming an ETF for years, saying there was fraud risk and all these other reasons, and Tether was a problem. So for whatever reason, the SEC denied them becoming an ETF. Their hands are tied, and they're not able to sell off assets and buy back shares to bring the price back in line. So right now, GBTC just keeps going down.
Well, on that point, Jack, if you get into the paperwork and start reading their earnings, they don't want to be considered a security. They don't want to be an ETF because there's too much regulation then, and you have too many people poking their fingers in there. So, we've looked at this in the 9 months, from the difference between the 9 months ending September 30th and the 3 months ending September 30th, they lost $17 billion on their balance sheet in asset value. So, yeah.
And that's their asset value, but their share price has lost far more than what their assets have done. And because they can't redeem, they're stuck here. I mean, they're trading at this ridiculous discount. And you can't buy GBTC and redeem it for Bitcoin in order to evoke the arbitrage. So people have no option. And now this didn't help. All right, a lot of people are out there starting to say Grayscale doesn't actually have the Bitcoin they're claiming. All right, now there's no proof of that, but of course there's also no proof otherwise. And Grayscale has been asked. There's crypto Twitter. A lot of folks out there are saying, "Hey, Grayscale, give us your wallet address so we can go look on the blockchain and say, yep, the Bitcoin's actually there that you say you have." And then this story came out. Grayscale refuses to share proof of reserves due to security concerns as shares trade at a 45% discount to Bitcoin. This is yesterday in CNBC. Grayscale, the asset manager running the world's largest Bitcoin fund, said in a statement that it won't share its proof of reserves with customers. Due to security concerns, we do not make such on-chain wallet information and confirmation data publicly available through a cryptographic proof of reserve or other advanced cryptographic accounting procedure, they said in a statement on Friday. Following the implosion of FTX and its subsequent bankruptcy proceedings exposing that the customer funds were missing, multiple crypto exchanges have jumped to release proof of reserve audits, in order to assuage investor concerns over safety of their funds. Others, like Binance, say they soon plan to do so. All right, so here's my beef with this whole thing. Number one, there is no security concern with posting a wallet address, right? People do it all the time. It's the private keys that's the security risk, not the wallet address. All right, and number two, citing security concerns is why we can't release where the money is. That is a page right out of Paolo Arduino's playbook over at Tether. For years, Tether has said they will not say what their reserves are held in order to protect the safety and the security or whatever intellectual property, whatever BS reasons they're offering, they won't prove they actually have the money over at Tether. And if your goal is to reassure your customers that their money is safe and sound, then taking a page out of Tether's playbook is the last thing you want to do. So this is very, very bad optics from Greyscale here. And I got to catch up to my man, Mr. Mike. Thank you, Mike, again, from Robin RC Models. He says, for Bitcoin to drop more, there needs to be sellers. Those companies that are broke never bought the asset, but just gambled the money deposits away. Well, there's one big seller that we're going to get to in a little bit, Mike. And thank you very much, sir, for the support of the channel, as always, and for the super chat. Michael Saylor. You guys remember Mike Saylor? He's the CEO of MicroStrategy. Is he still CEO or the chairman of the board? I don't know what they did, but he ran MicroStrategy. And unfortunately, they bought a lot of Bitcoin using Bitcoin as collateral. They borrowed against their Bitcoin, took the money that they borrowed against their Bitcoin, and they bought more Bitcoin with it. Well, that means if they get margin called on that loan, then they have to sell not only the Bitcoin they bought, but also the Bitcoin they put up as collateral. That's a lot of Bitcoin. All right. Nobody knows exactly the dollar value where MicroStrategy is going to get liquidated, where they're going to be forced to sell. But if the value of your collateral drops, the people who loaned you the money won't wait for things to recover. They're going to sell your collateral in order to cash you out. So that happens somewhere between here and zero. Nobody knows. I've heard 13,500 thrown around. I don't know the basis for that.
I know that
yeah.
while Scale's up, they have two different fair value assets. One's at 7,200, one's at 12,500.
So, yeah, there's the thing is, Mike, when people start going bankrupt, they don't sell what they want to sell. They sell what they have to sell. They sell what they have. They sell what they can sell. All right. So if Genesis goes bankrupt, then they're going to sell all their Bitcoin, not because they want to. They're not going to have a choice. And right now, a lot of people are selling. A lot of people are cashing out. They're afraid it's crashing, and they're cutting their losses and they're running. You know, they FOMO'd and they bought the top, and now they're selling into a panic and they're selling the bottom. This has happened before. But thank you very much. I appreciate the support of the channel. And we've got Mr. Tim Duffy. Hello, Tim Duffy. Thank you very much for the support of the channel. Is Powell spreading more hawk talk tomorrow? I wasn't aware we had a Powell tomorrow.
I didn't either.
Is he giving a speech? Probably. Look, we've seen a little bit of jawboning from Fed governors. Mary Daly has been all over the place in the last few days. I saw a headline this morning that she won't rule out a 75 basis point rate hike. But then yesterday, Mary Daly made some other statement that, hey, maybe a pause is in order. I mean, they're jawboning right now. At this point, I'm just sick of listening to these Fed governors and their jawboning. I'm going to listen to Powell. If he gives a speech like he did at Jackson Hole when he says, look, the market just straight up got the wrong message the last time I spoke, and that, you know, he had to slap the market down, that would be something important. If he's just giving like opening remarks at some college ceremony or something like that, probably not going to be.
Minutes are coming out tomorrow. I don't think he's necessarily speaking.
Okay, the meeting minutes. Yeah, that there could be a subtle change in the language that might move the markets in the meeting minutes, but not as big as an actual FOMC meeting or an actual press conference. So I don't expect any big Powell news tomorrow. Although Wednesday, right before Thanksgiving, that's a pretty good time for a news dump. If you're looking to drop some crap and then run away real quick for a long weekend, that's a good day to do it. So We'll keep an
So
eye
much
out for that, Tim.
information comes out tomorrow, right? Because all of Thursday and Friday stuff comes out tomorrow because Friday's a federal holiday.
Yeah. So, yeah, beware that news dump tomorrow afternoon. I didn't think of that, Tim. Thank you very much, sir. Appreciate the super chat and the support of the channel. All right. Let's get back on to what is the next one to go belly up. All right. Because the reason why I mentioned Grayscale and how they're in trouble right after I mentioned Genesis and how they were in trouble is because they're owned by the same company. Both Grayscale and Genesis are owned by this DCG, Digital Currency Group. All right. And the problem we saw with scam, bank run, fraud was that there was no barriers. There was no siloing. Alameda and FTX was this one sludge fund, sludge, whatever you want to call it, septic tank where money went to die. And they acted publicly like they were two different companies when really it was just all poured into the same tank, commingled and stolen. Right? Now, I'm not saying that is what's happening here, but considering what just blew up at FTX, we can't just dismiss it outright. So there is a temptation as your your Genesis is failing. There might be a temptation to raid your Grayscale funds for money to prop up your failing exchange. So that risk is there. The risk of, hey, we could have used our Grayscale investors' assets to try to extend this other thing that we have going on that's losing money just a little bit longer. And then you throw in, hey, we're not going to give you proof that the money's there. Well, that makes people suspicious, right? So now you have a potential motive for wrongdoing here. You have a potential means for wrongdoing here. They have access to all of these customer funds. And then they won't prove otherwise. It doesn't prove that there's any wrongdoing happening here. I don't want to spread rumors or anything like that or start a rumor. But this is a real risk, and the company is not taking action to assure investors otherwise. Right? And considering that this timeline of events on the 8th, no material credit exposure, and then 7 million, and then 175, and then we're freezing withdrawals, and we need $1 billion, and oh my God, we're going to be bankrupt over the course of 12 days. Grayscale needs to get out in front of this. They need to get out in front of this, and they need to be proactive. They don't need to be told to do this. They should have done this already. And that brings me to the next one, Coinbase. Coinbase shares tumble as Bitcoin slide continues. Investors fear contagion from the FTX collapse. I wonder if Jim Cramer still likes Coinbase to $475, or what was that famous tweet? Something like that. We like Coinbase to $475. Coinbase has lost over a quarter of its value in the past 4 trading sessions as investors fear more fallout from the FTX collapse. And that statement right there, like, really an understatement. They've lost a heck of a lot more than a quarter of their value this year. That's what they've done in the last 4 days. All right, they were already down big time. CEO Brian Armstrong said his company does not have any material exposure to FTX. Where have we heard this before, Mish? Wait.
Yep.
No material net credit exposure from Genesis. Guys, is anybody paying attention? Brian Armstrong, maybe you could wordsmith this a little bit. If you want to say the same thing, at least use different words. Come on, guys.
I think the word of the day is incestuous when talking about crypto companies.
Yes. Incestuous. It's the same money just moved around.
Mm-hmm.
Same hot potato. See, we've got it. Toss it to the next guy. See,
circle.
we've got it.
They all loan to each other.
But, in case, if it makes you guys feel any better, it certainly warms my heart to know that Coinbase CEO Brian Armstrong has sympathy for everyone involved. Gosh, he's a nice guy. He's just a regular guy like us, isn't he? I feel like he's talking to me directly here. It's amazing. Mizuho analysts wrote in a note on Friday that daily volumes in the industry are trending 30 to 40% below average for the year. Coinbase shares are down more than 8% on Monday, extending a slide that's pushed the crypto exchange to its lowest point since its market debut in April of 21. The drop comes as Bitcoin's slump continues and investors worry about contagion from FTX's spectacular collapse earlier this month. And look, the Coinbase IPO, that's probably one of the indicators that we were at a top last summer, right? When the biggest crypto exchange goes public, they're selling, right? When they're selling themselves, that means they're cashing out at the top. 19 months after going public with a market cap of over $85 billion, Coinbase has fallen below the $10 billion mark and has lost over a quarter of its value in the past 4 trading days. Now, Coinbase came out yesterday and said they have something like 600,000 Bitcoin held for Grayscale in their custody, right? So even though Greyscale wouldn't say where their Bitcoin was, post the wallet address, or any kind of on-chain verification, Coinbase came out and said, yeah, we got it. We got their money, no problem. And we have no net exposure to FTX. Gosh, I feel better. I really feel much better. So, look, Coinbase is possibly in trouble here. I mean, look, I don't have the chart up. Let me bring up their stock right now. Jesus, look at this thing. This is not a company that can raise capital by issuing shares. Look at a one-year chart of Coinbase. $303 to $42. Yeah, not so good. Not such a good look for Coinbase. Now, here's what I am really worried about. And this is a name that you should get used to, because at the center of all of this is an outfit called Silvergate. Silvergate is not a crypto exchange. Silvergate is a bank. Member of the Federal Reserve System. Remember, FDIC insured, Silvergate Bank. All right. They were a very not widely known, not widely used bank right up until a few years ago. Now they have something like, what, $30 billion in gross balance sheet positioning, like $16 billion in assets, $14 billion in liabilities, something like that. Well, Silvergate runs what they call the SEN, or the Silvergate Exchange Network.
I'm sorry. They have $15.1 million in assets. They have $14.2 million in liabilities.
That would be million thousands if that's what you're looking at. So it's in billions. Yeah.
Billions. Yeah.
So Silvergate runs this SEN, which is, it's this instantaneous dollar network. It allows all of these exchanges that use the Silvergate Exchange Network to 24/7 move actual dollars. This is important. This is actual dollars instantaneously, where a wire or an ACH transfer usually takes up to 3 business days. This is an instantaneous network. And the Silvergate Exchange Network is, look at who uses this. Coinbase. Paxos, that's the company that runs the Binance, the BUSD coin, which represents like 40% of Binance's assets. Crypto.com, Gemini, Kraken, Bitstamp, Circle. That's the owner of USDC, which I believe USDC is almost as big as Tether now, or they may be as big as Tether. And of course, we all know FTX. All of these companies use this Silvergate Exchange Network to send their dollars back and forth instantaneously. When you started an FTX account, they sent you wiring instructions to fund your money. It was a Alameda Research account at Silvergate Bank is where your money actually went. You thought you were funding your FTX account. You were sending money to Caroline Ellison at Alameda Research. By the way, we have a term for that. That's called bank fraud. When you take money from investors under false pretenses, that's fraud. And when you do it across invisible lines, it becomes a RICO case. All right? Organized crime. Again, Sam Bankman-Fried should already be in handcuffs. They already have enough to send him to jail for life without creating any new regulations or saying this is why we need to regulate. That guy should be in jail already. It is hilarious, tragic, whatever, stinks to high heaven that he is not already in cuffs. But look, all these companies use this same bank. Michael Saylor over at MicroStrategy, he leveraged his Bitcoin in order to borrow money to buy more Bitcoin on the Silvergate Exchange Network. That's who's going to liquefy him or liquidate him if Bitcoin drops below a certain price. So, miss your term, incestuous. Yes, all these companies took assets, borrowed real money against them from this Silvergate Exchange Network, and then they used that money to buy more of the same assets to drive up the value of those assets. So when you buy Bitcoin using Bitcoin as collateral, all you've really done is bought the same Bitcoin twice with the same dollar, right? I mean, isn't that the net effect here? So that means when you sell Bitcoin, you have to sell it twice to get the same dollar back. And that's how the price just crashes. And this Silvergate Bank is at the center of all of it. And what was it? The chief risk officer at Silvergate Bank is the son-in-law of the CEO.
Yeah. Nepotism on top of everything else.
Yep. I'm sure everything's fine over at Silvergate.
You know, they put a letter out. I think I sent you a letter from the CEO a couple days ago saying how great everything is there. Every time I've seen one of those letters within a week, everything falls apart. I mean, Credit Suisse, we have FTX, we have Genesis.
I'm sure they have no material net credit exposure over at Silvergate. Right? Surely there's no material net credit exposure.
No.
Don't call me Shirley. So, look, who's the next domino to fall? I gave you a couple names here, folks. I don't know exactly which one right now. If you were to pin me down and say, give me a name, I'd say Genesis. It's probably the next one to go. But I'd say in the contention right now is probably Greyscale. Coinbase probably a distant fourth or fifth place. Mm-hmm. I'd say Silvergate Bank. Silvergate is possibly how this contagion spreads from crypto to other banks. Silvergate is an actual bank. Again, there's a member of the Federal Reserve System. They're a bank based in California. Which, by the way, how did Silvergate Bank, maybe because, the son-in-law was the chief risk officer, but how did Silvergate Bank allow 1 million FTX customers to fund their accounts by sending money to an account in another company's name? How did that not get flagged over 1 million times at Silvergate?
So I think what the big thing is the regulators will go in. They've already got several class action suits being filed, trying to be the first one so that they can control it, because that's a lot of money if you're the controlling factor. Yep. But once the regulators get in there, and if they had any kind of collusion with FTX, that entire bank is going down, because they're going to start looking to everybody.
Is anybody stupid enough to miss it 1 million times? I mean, can they realistically claim stupidity as a defense here? I mean, I don't understand why the guys in the lettery jackets aren't currently carrying out boxes of documents and hard drives from Silvergate right now. I mean, every single person that funded an FTX account was a victim of bank fraud. FTX sent the money to Alameda using Silvergate to facilitate this fraud. And none of Silvergate's know your customer, KYC, none of their compliance, none of it caught this. It was going to an overseas account in the freaking Bahamas, and nobody caught it. Come on. Nobody's that stupid. Even if your son-in-law is the chief risk officer, even nepotism, they should have caught it. They knew. They looked the other way for whatever reason. Nobody's that bad. So Silvergate, that's probably the mechanism from crypto to infect the rest of the financial system. And this, I don't think this contagion stops in cryptocurrency. Again, this is all symptomatic of tightening monetary conditions. This all traces back to the Fed. Yes, the fraud has been there for years, but it's what the Fed is doing with monetary policy. That is what's exposing these frauds, because debt is getting more expensive. And this is all just one big debt leverage scheme. It's an incestuous debt leverage scheme. And now debt is getting more expensive and money is becoming more scarce. And, these schemes are constantly dependent on more money flowing into them. Well, that money's gone now. And one by one, they're being exposed as frauds. And they're all levered back and forth to each other. And they're all going down like dominoes. Silvergate is in the middle of it. And it's all leading up to Tether. Tether is the big one. The $66 billion elephant in the room. And I'm sure Tether has no material net credit exposure to any of them.
Well, Tether's even said that they didn't have any material to FTX. They did. They had a lot of it there. They've had Tether. What's that?
To FTX.
Yes.
Yeah, they did send 30 billion tethers to Alameda.
Oh, yeah, okay, yeah.
Totally different, right?
So they're saying that Alameda now has $1 billion in cash. I don't know how or where. So
Probably in their Silvergate account,
probably.
if I had to guess. It's what is it? Over they had 10 to 50 billion dollars in liabilities. I think it was something like 19 billion in liabilities. People are going to get pennies on the dollar, and it's going to take years.
Brandon Baker said something interesting in chat. It's a debt scheme, and it describes the entire banking system. Absolutely. You take M1 and you make M2 and M3 through debt vehicles. And
Yep.
it's called fractional banking reserve. If you go to your bank and everybody went to the bank and asked for their money, it's not there. Think when you're watching the what's the big Christmas movie everyone watches in black and white? Miracle on 30.
It's
No,
a
not
Beautiful
Miracle on
Life.
30. What's that?
It's a Wonderful Life.
It's a Wonderful Life. Think
Sorry,
about
It's a Beautiful Life. That was Ace of Base. Sorry. It's a Wonderful Life.
It's a Wonderful Life, right? So if you think about that one scene where they're all at the bank and they all want their money and it's not there, and they run over to Numbnuts' place and he says, "My money's in your house, your car. We have some here," and that's what it is, right? Every bank cannot withstand a run, and FTX had to run and is acting as a bank and didn't understand fractional reserves.
Yeah, I mean that's why you get interest, because they're taking risk with your money and they're paying you for the risk they're taking, and they're making a bigger profit. That's how banks make money, by taking risk with your money. Now there's a difference between buying U.S. Treasuries, buying mortgage bonds, right? Low risk investment vehicles. At least most of the time they're low risk, right? Right. Nothing is low risk now. Versus investing money in this incestuous Ponzi scheme, or just outright stealing the money. I mean, SBF just outright stole the money, right? He had his FTT token and he had his investments and he was playing games with Solana, right? But he also, the story was today, $125 million house for his parents bought with stolen money, which, by the way, makes his parents accessories to fraud, right? Possession of stolen property, it's a crime. All right, so his parents belong in jail too. But let's see, his dad used to be Gary Gensler's boss. You'll pardon me if I don't hold my breath, waiting for that.
I apologize to Mr. Bailey for calling him a numbnuts. He was a really great guy in the end.
Oh, I've been called worse. If numbnuts is the worst thing Mr. Bailey gets called today, then Mr. Bailey had a pretty good day. So, yeah, folks, that's where it is. And by the way, Binance, I would not rule out Binance also in this. Sorry, CZ is out there selling himself as a savior, just like SBF did. I would not trust that guy any further than I can throw him. He's a tiny little guy. I can probably throw him pretty far, but I wouldn't trust him that far. And Mr. Steve Whitus, thank you, Steve, very much for the super chat. He says, is there a correlation with the FTX exposure in the mainstream media occurring after the midterms? No, the story
broke during the midterms. I don't think it was necessarily after.
Yeah, it was November 2nd was the article.
We knew going into the midterms what the donation scheme was. We knew that it was failing. I think the MSM's puff pieces really came out after the election.
Yeah, the puff pieces just defy logic. I hope the public isn't dumb enough to swallow this, but they're doing everything they can to make these people seem sympathetic. You can't be generous with stolen money. It's not your money. It's not generosity.
Yeah, he's not Robin Hood, man.
No, Robin Hood stole taxes and gave them back to the taxpayers.
Yeah,
that's what Robin Hood did. Sam Bankman-Fried stole from the middle class, lower middle class, young people, relatively poor people. He stole from them and he gave the money to politicians
and himself.
And he bought his MIT professor, lawyer parents $125 million house. He ain't Robin Hood. Heck no. But, Queen Caroline, who loves Harry Potter. That's what Barron said. No, who said that?
Bloomberg.
Steve Forbes. Forbes said that.
Yeah.
Queen Caroline. What? Oh, my God. Gag me. With each passing day, I have less and less confidence in the mainstream media. Yesterday, perfect example what the Wall Street Journal pulled. It just got awful. And I started with a very low opinion of the mainstream media, so that's a pretty bold statement. But as far as the timing with the midterms, I think the timing, it wasn't chosen by the powers that be. I think CZ chose the timing, to be honest with you. I can't prove it. All I have is cui bono, who benefits. I suspect CZ is behind the whole blow up. All right. CZ was Sam Bankman-Fried's business partner right until July of 2021. So CZ knew exactly what was going on at FTX. There's no way he didn't know. Okay. He was a major partner there. He cashed out. He had access to the Alameda balance sheets that were leaked to CoinDesk with that November 2nd article. And then after 4 days, when that article did not have the desired effect on Target, he decided to go to Twitter and announce that he was dumping his FTT token. So if you ask me, CZ engineered this whole thing. All right, that's just my opinion. And it's circumstantial, I get it, but you know what? I'm not a lawyer. I'm not required to prove anything beyond a reasonable doubt. But you can't ignore the coincidence there. He is a snake in the grass, man. He is just another snake in the grass, and he wants to do the same thing. He's out there now claiming he wants to give away his fortune, and he's claiming he wants to buy up all these failing companies, build himself an empire. He's doing exactly what SBF was trying to do. So thank you, Steve Whitus. Appreciate the super chat, sir. And thank you, Jose Orozco, keeper of the Bucky's Corn Nuggets. Says, I saw the sign. Crypto too volatile for me. Was that another Ace of Base reference? Is that what I just caught there, Jose?
I saw the sign.
Oh, my goodness.
I can't see.
Oh, this show is descending. This is descending into chaos fast. Yes. Thank you so much, Jose. I'm going to have one of two horrible Ace of Base options stuck in my head all day now. Oh, where's Bismarcky when you need him? That's a song I wouldn't mind having stuck in my head. Anyway, thank you, Jose Orozco. Appreciate the super chat, sir. And what's going on, Wally? That's a new name. I hope I pronounced it right. He says SBF and FTX had deep state connections. I would agree with that. Through Caroline's mother, the MIT, absolutely. Through academia, I'm sure there are a million dotted lines you could draw to some very entrenched power players in D.C. SBF's parents are concerned to the WEF. Okay, connected to the WEF maybe. I hope I didn't just catch a shadow ban. The FEW backwards. Oh, things were going well for my channel. Did I just get shadow banned, Mish?
Bruno.
Blaming you, Wally.
It's Bruno. We don't talk about Bruno.
We do not talk about Bruno. Yes. The FEW, hitherto referred to as Bruno. Hardly anything is known about Gary Wang, the co-founder of FTX. That's a good point. There was one other name. The guy's last name was Singh. There was another guy, Singh, was involved early on with FTX, and I saw a lot of his name on the documents, the court filings, etc., but he hasn't been in the press. There's a lot to this story that we don't know about. There is a ton of stuff we don't know about. I just cannot wait for this movie to come out. I really can't. I think this movie is going to be fantastic. Jonah Hill, clear your schedule, brother. Get this movie made. Get it made fast. And don't portray them as sympathetic people. Please do not. I do not want to feel sorry for these people. We should not feel sorry for these people. Feel sorry for their 1 million plus victims that they did not care about. But thank you, Wally. I agree. I think we're going to find a lot of disturbing government connections here. And that's why I think Mr. SBF is probably going to end up getting himself Epsteined if he's not careful. And that's probably why we're seeing all these hacks and all this money flying around right now and planes going to Argentina inexplicably in the middle of the night. He's trying to finance his way to not getting Epsteined. But he's got too much dirt on too many powerful people. I don't think he's going to last. Don't be surprised. That's all. And KDM, thank you, KDM, says, shouldn't CZ be an accessory too? You know, KD, he was part owner of FTX. He made a major investment. We don't know how much. But the reason why CZ owned over 500 million FTT tokens was because that is how Sam Bankman-Fried bought him out, that and probably Tom Brady's money, in July of 2021 when the bromance broke up. You know, CZ, I guess, on the surface, based on some kind of like underhanded quotes that were in the articles, it looked like CZ didn't like that SBF was cozying up to regulators. I think when CZ bought his portion in FTX, it was him trying to get around his recent ban. Binance was banned from doing business in the U.S. And so CZ bought his chunk of FTX right around the same time he launched his ill-fated Binance US exchange that never really did anything. Almost like FTX was a hedge against that ban in the U.S. And SBF took his money and was handing it over to the regulators, the whole package, and CZ wanted it for himself, so they went their separate ways. But yeah, CZ, I'm sure he had knowledge of wrongdoing. Absolutely. Abso-freaking-lutely. Nobody could have taken a major chunk in this company. I don't know, Tom Brady, Giselle Bundchen, whatever her name is, his wife, right? Okay, the football player and a supermodel, maybe they didn't know, all right? Because those are people who probably would not be obscenely wealthy if it was not for their professions, all right? But a guy like CZ, again, the Ontario Teachers Pension System, all they had to say was, I'd like to meet your accountant. And the scheme would have been exposed. I'd like to meet your accountant. Not your VP of accountant, not your head of the accounting department or the director, just your accountant. They didn't have an accountant. $19 billion fraud did not have an accountant. How? It's not possible. That would have exposed the fraud. Nobody asked. So yes, I agree, KDM. I think CZ is an accessory to this thing also. Can't prove it, but it's hard to cry ignorance in this case. It really is. I don't buy that. But thank you very much, guys, for the support of the channel and for the super chats. We are going to take one last trip through the indexes here because we're getting a little long in the tooth. It looks like, the markets are open right now, so let's stop looking at the futures. And the S&P, I almost called it the SBF. The SBF 500, the S&P is at 39.69, up about 20 points or 0.5%. Dow is up 260 points or 0.77%. And the NASDAQ is just barely positive for the day right now, up 5 points or 0.05%. So market's not really sure where it wants to go today. It's up just a little bit. Keep an eye on that. I don't expect a lot of trading right now heading into the holidays. I think a lot of people are probably starting their long weekend early. So I wouldn't be surprised to see a quiet couple of days. But it was the one guy mentioned in his chat. I can't recall the name, but keep an eye on that Wednesday news dump heading into Thanksgiving. That was an interesting thought. And the fact that Jerome Powell is talking tomorrow, I hadn't seen anything about that. Maybe he's given a speech somewhere, but it's not an event that I've seen really publicized anywhere. All right, guys, I think we are going to call it there. Once again, I want to say thank you to everybody for your super chats. Thank you to my Patreon supporters for everything you guys do for the channel. Looking forward to talking to you guys tomorrow on our weekly Zoom call. Link down in the description should you feel so inclined. Also, thanks, Mom and Dad. Thank you to my Blue Wrenches. My moderator, Mish, appreciate you guys keeping things neat and tidy in the chats. Mish, you got anything you want to throw in there?
Two things. I think everyone that's whining about how FTX gave so much money to the Democrats and that it was fraud needs to take a good introspection on hypocritical talk. And secondly, everybody have a happy Thanksgiving.
Yeah, look, folks, crooked money makes its way to both sides of the aisle. They both suck. Let's be honest. They both suck. They all take it. This particular one sent an awful lot of money to the D's. Remember, Ken Griffin, head of Citadel, right? The guy who destroyed took away the buy button, conspired with Robinhood to take away the buy button. He is an exclusively R donor. This is not a DR thing. This is a them, us thing. Very good point, Mish. And also a very good point, guys. I want you to have an awesome Thanksgiving. Set aside all the nonsense. Spend some time with family. Don't bring too much of the doom and gloom to the table. Don't suck the air out of the room. Remember, this is a happy time. Remember, the kids are listening. But at the same time, you drop a little hint. Prepare for what's coming. Absolutely. And, we're going to call it there, guys. Until next time, live small and dream big.